tripping on you. I'm 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 tripping on you.
Hello everyone, my name is Notepad Anon, and I write games for fun. So, what are we doing today? Well, today we are going to be working on the preliminary notes for a new project, because that's what I do here. So, the next project we're going to be working on is going to be called, I'm going to butcher this by the way, because it's Polish, and I don't know why I call it Polish, but I'm sticking with it at this point. Pajnie Kobiet, which is translated into burger is women's duel. And why am I making this? It's because I hate thirsty sword lesbians. And there's a game jam going on. The Game Design Guild Game Jam. It's cool. Yeah. That's really all I could say about it. But what I should do is we're going to go to, where is my, there we go. See what the schedule is going forward. So after we'll affectionately call it running democracy in a handful of things. This is the current schedule as of right now. Koviet, we'll be working on that. Into Iron Caskets, Omega Men, Deep Sea, Fear and Hunger, High Speed Death Machine, a goddamn board game, which is going to be in a completely different beast to work with. Fists of Chaos, Endless Adventures, another Redux project here. I don't know which one I want to do yet. I might sub in like Exalted or something. I don't know. And then finally, we're going to be ending it with Project Speed. Going to make a wild, crazy estimate here, but if we assume that every 3 episodes is about a week, we're looking at about, let's see, 2, 3, 4. We're probably looking till about March, maybe. Like late March, early April, or even further beyond. It kind of depends on how some of these earlier projects go. If they're going to be incredibly simple, or they are going to get very hard very quickly. The ones I'm most worried about is probably Omega Men and Fear and Hunger, because those can go, depending on how things go with those, it's either going to take a lot longer or a lot shorter than what I have planned, especially Fear and Hunger, but that's just because there's going to be a lot of weird shit involved with that. But what are we working on today? What is Gobi at? Well, if I conveniently go here and go to Notepad's current projects on the slate more than anything, we scroll right here. So, for those who don't know, I hate Thirsty Sword Lesbians. It is a PBTA game that was kickstarted for $1 bajillion, and I hate it because you may be thinking, oh, hey Notepad, obviously something called Thirsty Sword Lesbians has something to do with swords and lesbians. And the answer is, a bit. It's mostly about being a lesbian, not about awesome sword combat. So I said, fuck it, let's make a game about swords and stabbing each other, because that's what I like. Not stabbing one another. I like games that actually have content in them and not just a thinly veiled threat to give people money. I don't appreciate that as much, but we have to wait till that good thing comes out, which is going to hopefully be sooner rather than later, because I want to review it, I want to look over it, and I want to appreciate it for what it is. I do hate Powered by the Apocalypse games. That is an accurate statement, words. Uh, the thing is with Powered by the Apocalypse, the thing with PBTA to me anyway, is that it's a very simple system that some people don't get the full extent of what you can actually do with it, and it's easy to hack things out. You get a lot of shit with PBTA. And it's bad, because I actually like Apocalypse World. That's a weird thing for me to say, but I actually like Apocalypse World, the original. And it's technically second edition. Because it's very thematic, it's very nice, everything flows with it. You know, it's everything about Apocalypse World works. Even Dungeon World. I may not like it one-to-one, because Kobel has the amazing personality of a slug, but I enjoy what it set out to do and what it tried to do. I don't like all these other games that it's like, oh, well, this is Powered by the Apocalypse, without kind of understanding the nature of PBTA. Fudge games, but again, it's the same principle. It's easy. You get a lot of shit with it, but that's like me complaining about like how GURPS's main settings aren't very exciting to me. It's not the point. But with those ones, it's derived from its setting and its gameplay. So it's like, okay, if the game thematically I don't like the theme effectively. If I don't like the game itself, I'm not going to like it in general. So I can go on a long-winded rant, but that isn't what this show is about. What it is about is learning about what the fuck Podziemia Kobiet is actually about. Now, the thing with Kobiet is I wanted to make a game about dueling. I wanted to make a game about swords, and I wanted to make a game about sword dueling. And to do that, I needed to look around. And all roads eventually led to a single game that some of you may or may not know, called Song of Swords. Song of Swords is a... Song of Swords, you may or may not know, is a sword and sorcery game based off of the bones of the Riddle of Steel. SOS, and in turn, a lot of those games in that same genre, their main draw is historical accurate combat, which is to say, shit gets fucky fast and people die quickly. There's a lot of mechanics which go into it, and it's very bloody, very unfun for everyone involved, and it's awesome. I didn't want to just remake that for it, but I kept having to consult it, which did bring me to a handful of interesting, we will call them interesting people who do interesting things for interesting reasons. Mostly apologists for all of SOS's problems. Oh wow. People are persistent. I will give them that. But trying to make a game about dueling has its own quirks behind it. Same way that it was my quirks when it came to making Fists of Chaos of how do you describe punching someone? I want you all to think about that for a second. How do you get across the feeling of grabbing a fist and ramming it directly into someone's face? Well, that's where it gets complicated, because you start thinking about it for a second. Alright, I'm going to punch you. Alright, do I dick you in the nose? Do I go for a round? Hit you right in the jaw? Do I hit you in the gut? There's 100 ways to punch someone. What force do you put behind it? How much pain you want to actually inflict with it? Are you wearing gloves? Are you not? There's 1,000 ways to punch someone. However, in our minds, we just say, we punch someone. It's punch in the face. Same goes for sword fighting. Sword fighting, and I actually asked people, like, okay, how do you sword fight? And people just said, well, you swing a sword at someone. And while that's correct, there's also a lot of little things that go into it. Mostly involving, where are you standing? What kind of sword are you using? You have to ask yourself, what kind of sword are you using? Are you using a long sword, great sword? Do you actually know how to use it? Are you actually even fit enough to actually carry the damn thing? And you are correct, words. You can do that. However, that was one of the things I wanted to ask with Fist of Chaos is how do I actually make it a interesting and unique system of punching someone in the face repeatedly, and how do you actually make it without just saying attack roll, attack roll, attack roll, attack roll, attack roll. I want to actually give some flavor, you could say, to it. Same thing I want to go with Kobiet here, is I want to go get across very quickly that you are dueling someone. You are going back and forth. It is a one shot is all you need. At the end of the day, all you need is one sword entering your eye socket to kill you. And what goes into that? Yeah, you can swing around your sword willy-nilly, but at the end of the day, someone who's skilled, someone who knows what they're doing, is going to slash downward and chop your arm off. Or, hey, someone's just going to stab through your guard and kill you, because guess what? They actually know how to use a damn sword. That is actually somewhat what I was going for, words. I was thinking about doing a little bit more nuance to it, obviously, because I have to worry about a bunch of other little things with this. But I also like experimenting. That's half the point of the SPRUG Workshop, is me experimenting with things to make things interesting. Ignore all of this. Ignore this nightmare up here. This is for a later project that hopefully will pan out. Oh, wait. Here's my notes. Let's see. And that's at the end of the day what we do here. We double check, we make notes. Actually, 3/4. Because one of the major things I need to get across is that the system is going to be about duality. You're going to have to worry about court and fights, effectively. That's one of the main things, despite the fact you're all going to be playing women. Now, the catch, though, is that everything here is going to be more formal duels. It's not going to be, I'm just going to swing into a fight and start swinging my sword. No, that's not really going to be how it goes, and that's not a way I want it to go. Give me a second, I need to... First drink of the night. Fireball. I don't even like Fireball that much. Duality. 3 to 4 part attribute system. And the problem is this has to kind of feed into each other because all the attributes need to be there in case for both courtly activities and fighting stuff. Which is another thing I'm going to have to avoid things like strength. Because I can't have the, quote, strength attribute. Because at the end of the day, quote, you're not supposed to be strong. You're not really supposed to be strong, per se. You're supposed to be, again, an effeminate woman who has the right to duel others. No duality in character, 3 to 4 part attribute system. Oh, wait, the adrenaline-based combat system is actually an idea I thought of on a walk today. I thought it was actually it was somewhat clever, maybe not perfectly clever, but the idea is that you're given a set of d6s right off the bat, and you're forced to kind of spend them as you find appropriate. And I did this mostly because I needed to figure out how to do a feint. How do you fake out an opponent more than anything and swing your blade in the other direction, which, fun fact, is incredibly complicated. God, how do you parry? How do you feint? Like, how do you do all these little things that you don't think about when you're just fighting, unless you're just like, oh, I'll just roll a defense attribute and that's it. Haha, and just roll a single die. I don't want that. Yeah, I want to experiment because fuck it, I can do that. Alright, let's see. We're gonna need bravado, and that's gonna be kind of your social. Gonna be more of your social attribute, but the idea behind it is that your bravado is going to be more about taunting and forcing opponents to make stupid decisions and bolstering their, pretty much forcing them to dedicate more to a single attack each time, which is risky for you, but the idea is that if they're expending so much on a single attack, you can just counter them pretty easily. Let's see, we've got bravado. God, we need something. Okay, so at the end of the day, oh God, what's that word? Technique, maybe? Would technique be a right word for this? How many options can you add to rock, paper, scissors before it stops becoming interesting? That's a fascinating question. Well, I think it boils down to the very simple idea of what the players feel like doing. If you want to just cap it at 3, that's fine. If you want to go all the way up to 12, hell, there's a reason we have the awful, awful charts out there of the various moves. By technicality, you can do whatever the hell you want. Nothing's stopping you from doing anything. It's like chess. You can just play chess if you want, but you can also play baby chess, in which you remove all but a few handful of pieces. You can play fairy chess with a dozen other pieces. You can play any of the other chess derivatives there are out there to play whatever kind of game you want. Now, at the end of the day, if we're asking a question, where is there a cap of what's entertaining, then we have to ask ourselves, is there a minimum to be entertaining? What's stopping me from just playing, okay, I just want to play rock and scissor? You know, who throws a rock and who throws scissors? Maybe like make that the ultimate game. Just like, oh, here's 2 options. You win or you lose. Flip a coin. There's a million questions. There's a million answers and no right there's a million answers but no right answer. Because at the end of the day, it's entirely dependent on the creator, as well as entirely dependent on the players. If you don't want to play something complicated, don't play something complicated. If you don't want to play something simple, don't play something simple. It'd be kind of... That's all you can really... Was there always a right answer? That's the question you always have to ask yourself, is there always a right answer? Because if there is a right answer, why haven't we solved a plethora of other issues? You're like, oh, well, what's the best game out there to simulate, to play chess? Okay, we're now getting the philosophy of game design, but here's my philosophy on game design. My very simple philosophy is that you can't really necessarily get better or get worse at game design, because ultimately speaking, there's nothing to improve in. What we're doing is writing words down on paper that sometimes people will play. And anytime you write a rule down, someone can ignore it. Someone can just say no. I mean, how many times have you ever fudged a rule in a rule book before, being like, I don't really want to... Do we really need to roll 15 dice to ascertain what this grapple is? Well, I don't think so. There's things you can obviously improve, and as a writer, no, that's the secret. Getting better at game design, that's one thing. Getting better as a writer, that's very different. There's a reason we see a million different hacks for old school D&D out there. The reason why is because people enjoy it. Oh, there's always the most right answer. I think what you're going at, for context for those not in chat right now, the words here is debating me on the nature of good games, left bad games, and his answer to my very long-winded response there is we wouldn't have the term bad game or good game if it wasn't possible to do something better or worse. And most game design is the designer's answer to the question, how do you X and what is fun? So there's always a most right answer. And I think the thing is, you're correct, words. There is a right answer to answering those 2 questions. How do you do X and what is fun? However, you have to answer yourself, why isn't every single system a D6 system? 1d6. 6 you are successful, 1 you are not. Is that fun? It's fun. It's simple. It's fun, it's simple, and I'm allowed to do X. So why isn't every game that? Why isn't every game D&D? Why isn't every game an amalgamation of a simple system? Why isn't everything GURPS? The penultimate answer, why isn't everything simply GURPS? Because GURPS does everything, right? Everyone agrees that GURPS can do most things. And people derive fun from it. So why don't we just never design any games and just rely on GURPS? And I think the ultimate answer is some people You're conflating doing a thing with doing something well. Well, yeah, because ultimately speaking, I can do anything. And it's entirely dependent on a completely different person whether I did it well or not. There are people who love GURPS, who will fight tooth and goddamn nail to defend that game. Me, I couldn't care less. I don't. GURPS is fine. Not my favorite game, not my worst game. I like it more than others. I dislike it more than others. But will I call it a flawless game? No. Will I call it a perfect game? No. There's a reason Rifts is my favorite game. Rifts sucks. Rifts is a terrible game. There's a million RCCs, million OCCs, a million things to consider with it. And at the end of the day, half the rulebook is laid out as a chimp would, because Kevin is Kevin. However, why do I like Rifts? It's not a good game from any design perspective. It's not a very solidly built game. There's bloat everywhere. That game is Bloat City, USA. But why do I like it? I like it because of what it does. I like it because I can tell stories in it that I can't tell anywhere else. I like it because it's Rifts, and I have fond memories of it. That's why I derive enjoyment from it. I ask the question, how Kevin asked the question, how do I make this world? And he said, this is what I want to do. This is the system, the megaversal system, is what is fun to him. Do I find it fun? Yeah. Is it good? No. That's where the ultimate questions arise from, I think, when it comes to game design in general. Because at the end of the day, no matter what we do, someone's going to enjoy it. Someone's not going to enjoy it. Even things like VTNL, the game that literally has a rule that you are legally allowed to punch your player in the face for not properly rolling the dice. I mean, you have to have the special dice tower to even consider rolling. Someone somewhere said, this is fun. This is fine. I love this. The creator did, nobody else, but he did. So are you saying he's wrong because of the majority? No, it's his prerogative as a designer. What's marketable? Completely different. If we're talking about marketing and selling a product, very different. Entirely different. Astronomically different. I could go into a long-winded rant about the nature of the selling market, but we're talking about game design, and ultimately game design is in the eye of the beholder, which is an unfortunate reality. Does that answer your question? Where was I? So we have bravado, so if we use bravado more... attributes use. That's another thing I have to worry about with this, is that you also... Song of Swords also unfortunately has... PDF real fast. Nothing. You got nothing. Fuck. All I want to do is see your attributes. All I want to see is your attributes, so I steal them. And this is why I want to avoid the crunch. You may be saying that's not, not, kind of defeating the purpose if you don't want the crunch, but wait a second. I know where to go. I know where to go. Into that Song of Swords shitpost server I entered. Haha! Yeah, welcome to Song of Swords Core Rules Revised. Let's see. Okay, now I'm gonna have to base this off. That's what I'm gonna have to do, aren't I? I don't like that. So, bravado, which is more of your aggression. Composure, which is more of your defense. So if we use the idea of bravado, composure, pinch. Oh, that's Nash. That's more of, you can put that more in the bravado. I think that's not quite what I'm wanting here. So if you have bravado, composure, I need something for effectively trick. It's the fucking with use. Let's see. So aggression, defense. It's kind of the more the tricksy. I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing as the third attribute. That would be a good one. I need swashbuckler. 7th C attributes. All I need is just, if I can get a name, I'm good. Sprawn, resolve. Wit? Would wit work? Honestly, wit maybe not. Yeah. So wit's more about your tricks. So because again, all these attributes have to fulfill the idea of being at court and on the field. So give me 1 second, lads. I need to use the gentleman's quarters. I'm back. Don't worry. I'm alive. Okay, here we go. Okay, so if we use three-part attribute system, so if we use bravado, wits, composure, the CBW, composure. Yeah, bravado, wits, and composure. Use those together, because you can use those on and off the field. You can also, and on the field, bravado would be more about provoking attacks. It's more of your aggression. Wits is more of your tricks and more of your intelligence. And composure is keeping your shit together. Composure is the weak link there. Then I need a fourth, and I don't know what that fourth would be. What would that fourth be? I don't know. Okay, so we want duality and character. Every part of the character must serve on and off dual arena. Duality. Dual. Ha! Didn't even realize that. I am very clever. So, the adrenaline-based combat. So, we're going to say base 10 adrenaline. In a fight. We do something like a, if we steal directly from Song of Swords, we have our stances here. Actually, here, give me one moment. So I do actually have a little whiteboard. I actually got it from work at an old job anyway. I occasionally write things on it in the middle of the night when I need to wonder if things work. So let's see. And one thing I was actually considering doing is doing something from For Honor, because for those of you who have not played For Honor before, here I'm gonna bump the font up here so it's easier to read. 26. One of the main things in For Honor is that you have this effectively a three-part combat. Yeah, you have this three-directional combat system. You can attack up, left, right. That's it. Fairly simple, fairly bog standard. However, there did come a noticeable amount of fighter game logic when it came to it. Because the idea is that you perfect blocked. You perfect blocked anything in the same area. So if I was facing up, you attacked me up, I'm going to block it. You attacked me left, and I was blocking left, I'm going to block it. So it came down to kind of baiting out where your opponent's going to block and attacking where they aren't thinking you're going to, or doing fake outs or moves or grabs or things like that. Kind of just mess with your opponent, thinking, where am I going? Now, right now, I think the divide between, in this game, is between three different ideas. We have that directional, go away, For Honor. We have that directional combat system, where the idea is you choose a direction to attack from, and you're going to strike from that particular quadrant. either whether it's a 3 or a 4 or a 6 or 7 or 9 or whatever, you're going to strike from that particular area to that particular area to do damage. Now, that has its benefits because it's a little bit easier, but it also has its drawbacks of being, well, you guessed it, you're having 3 areas to actually get hit from, which could lead to a bunch of little issues going down the line, mostly notably when you're dealing with things like health, because For Honor doesn't use a limb-based health system, it uses a flat HP bar. It works for Honor because it's a fighting game at its core. I'm going to do a heavy attack up top, it's going to take 40 health, and then I'm going to go from the right to do 20, and it's boom, boom, 60 health. That's the strategy. It's just like, okay, how do you block this? How do you fight this? The other option we have is speed combat, and the idea being it's how fast and how deadly you strike. Fuck, no, that ain't gonna work. Okay. There's actually one game I've been basing this off of is a game called Hellish Court. For those who don't know, it's a fencing game, effectively. I've been basing it a lot off there because there's been a lot of mocap stuff going into it, and the movement and the ability to do things is essential. Because you have to ask yourself with any of these kind of games, how do I parry? Question mark. How do I feint? And at the end of the day, how do I die? Those are like some of the main little questions you don't think about when you're writing a game, but here you have to. Like something like D&D, you don't parry in D&D. You don't. That's not a part of the game. That's not important for that kind of game because the emphasis isn't on single combat between 2 individuals and where things are lethal. No, you have an HP bar. You get hit by a goblin and it deals 3d2 damage to you. You get your shit fucked. That's the point. It's, you have a pool of health, you have a resource that if you ever is reduced to 0, you're boned, you're dead, you're gone. Here, getting stabbed, I have to account for the idea of you getting stabbed in the eye socket immediately. How do you do that? How do you replicate the idea of someone jumping up, slashing down, and driving their blade 3 inches into your skull? You're dead. There's no like whimsy magic. Oh, you just reduce my health to 12. No, that's not how that goes. Now, love or hate HP, that's not HP isn't a part of this game. So that's just a thing I'd have to worry about, which brings me to actually if we cut that. Nah, let's do stances. Cautious is the only one I'm a little bit iffy on. But I might use cautious. I might use something else for that. It's pretty much how I intend for this to go in my head, and that's where a majority of the time things actually reside. How I see it in my noggin is your stance. Stance is going to determine whether you're distributing, whether it's going to be offense or defense. Now, since we're using like a base of 10 offenses, you can use 10 for offense. Is that you're rushing in there to actually attack someone. Defense, you have to spend it all on defense. But it's how you choose to do that. Mostly when you pull off things, mostly because you have to worry about things when it comes to like feints, parries. What I was thinking about doing is, let's say before combat, before we start attacking one another, I'm like, all right, I'm going to distribute 5 of my, I'm going to go aggressive. I'm going to distribute 5 of my die for the first attack. I'm going to distribute 3 of my die for the second. And 2 die for the third attack. What a feint would be Be like, oh, all right, I'm going to roll. But wait a second, I'm instead going to have my die pool. So I'm only going to have 2 die for my first attack. But I'm also going to redistribute that dice elsewhere. So instead of 3 for the second attack, it's 6 die for the second attack. But you're losing out on that first one, which allows someone who is smart and knows what they're doing to say, oh, aha, I'm going to break your combo here on this first attack. You go in there, you try to feint, I'm going to just pop your head open. Being like, there's not much you can do. You can't really get a second attack off when you are bleeding to death on the ground. That's the idea in this little noggin space of mine. I think this number right here is going to be what determines whether or not it's things like heavy or light attacks, which is going to be long slash short style. Now, an acquaintance of mine, like the same guy who got me into Song of Swords more than anything, he's been kind of recommending, little things when it comes to Song of Swords. He knows Songs of Swords 10 times better than I ever will. But I've just been kind of referencing it. Yeah. Which actually, if we do this, let's see. What am I looking at? Number of die dedicated to the attack equal light or heavy variant. More slash less damage slash block breaking. Exclusive court slash weapon skills. And the third way, weapon skills, weapon slash court skills are the same. Swords. So it's the so our three exclusive ideas behind skills would be something akin to I'm skilled in swords, therefore I can do sword stuff, but that's it. That's the only thing. You only really have weapons. But you also can go the other direction, which is like, okay, here's court skills and here's weapon skills. And here's your very specific, it's kind of more broad, so it's swords, swords, long swords, great swords, very basic, sabers and stuff like that. And then you also have your court skills of dealing with people, women, men, servants, stuff like that. While up here, tie exclusively, actually, what I can do, so pretty much this is, instead of just saying, oh, I have a saber, I have the saber skill, I have the long strike saber skill, I have the short strike saber skill, I have this very specific method of using sabers in this very specific manner that anytime I'm using it, I'm going to get a bonus to my adrenaline. Here's a little bit more open, but again, you don't have any court skills in this one. Well, here it's a little bit more open, but a little bit broader at the same. It's more broad, but you also get the court skills. Here, it's pretty much the same thing as this one. However, it's one and the same. So instead of having court and weapon skills, you just have one skill that does two things. Again, furthering the idea, the duality idea. And actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that right there. There we are. Right. Actually, phase-based combat, which we kind of steal a little bit from L5R, Legend of the Five Rings. We have the stare down, attack declarations. I'm going to steal directly from Song of Swords, the bout, and then the recovery phase. So you're constantly building up your adrenaline throughout the fight. That's constantly increasing, slowly and steadily. What am I looking for? What am I looking for? Actually, what I can do is I'm going to put you up here. I'm going to put you right there. I'm going to feed you in. Right there. So the attribute system. What are the point of the attributes then? People actually think I know what the hell I'm doing, and I find that amusing. Maybe something like reduce adrenaline, so the combat system looks more like this. So instead of, we have we'll call it the combat pool for now. I'm going to have to change that name, but it's going to be your adrenaline, which is going to be 5 for the majority of fights, plus your skill in a certain Well, if you use the 3, so it'd be stance based plus modifiers. Actually, I should say plus or minus modifiers. I want to do the limb-based combat because I want to be able for you to rip someone's fucking arm off. Because that's half the fun of these things, I think. Or perhaps I'm just sitting here talking to myself. That seems to be a fairly common occurrence these days. Or drink more inspiration juice. So if we tie bravado is aggressive, wits is wits is cautious, and composure is defensive. If we do something like that, build your combat. So this would have to be flat damage plus successes. Because you're going to need to it's gonna be a D6 dice pool system. 5, 6 succeeds. 1's a crit fail. Which does mean if we go here, let's see if we do something like crit fails, -1 success, and need a success to be successful, or do you need a success? I mean, if we use the ideal passive block, Effectively, this is what I'm trying to get across, which is a lot easier said than done. How do you work grabs in there? Grabs are going to have to be in there. What is your secret? Riddle me this. Riddle me this game. What is your secret? Because there's an answer here. Make you work the way I want you to. So if we do something... Alright, so your base... So if we use that as your combat pool, and then... We're gonna have to combos. Combos are going to be a part of this game, I know that much. And if there's combos, that means there has to be combo breakers. For limb damage, we can do the player hit distribution. That's called strike. I usually go with player hit distribution because I think that's a little bit more fair. Okay, both build their tool. Both build their pools. Attack, block. Okay, both combatants build their pool. He closes the distance, increasing the distance by 1 for a die. He goes for an attack, fails. He goes in for the attack. He does a light hit. He goes for the grabs, fails, kills. Because I want this to be a very real thing that occurs, that you just score just better than them and you chop off their hand or their leg or something. Just immediate, just done. Just bam. Now, Tess, you're watching me try to get... What I'm trying to do is get this combat system to do that. Because so far, this is my notes. Welcome to my notes, Toast. Now, the easy part of this endeavor... Because unfortunately, probably, did some sound setting change? No, I downed 2 shots of fireball, if that counts. I'm down a third. You know, this is what happens when Notepad thinks. It gets serious sometimes. Yeah, I'm actually drinking a bottle of water right now. The majority of my, it's bad, the majority of my diet at this point is effectively just coffee and liquor. Coffee, liquor with occasional bouts of something else to eat. But, you know, I've been staring at this thing for the past hour and I can see the issue. I can see the problems. I can see it, but I can't figure out how to do it. Something isn't adding up, and I don't know what the math is. I don't know what the equation to fix this is. Because so far, the main part is that we have our three-part attribute system. We go into bravado, wits, composure. Fairly simple. I don't want an extensive, super big attribute system, and I don't want it to be like this heavily involved thing. Because characters are going to die. That's one thing I have to remember, is that characters can die in a single hit. If you get unlucky and someone goes for the big hit and chops your head off, your head's off. You're dead. Now, because the thing is, I have to manage the entirety of the duality of characters. Every single character has got two parts to them. There's two layers. You have the court and you have the duels. In court, you're supposed to be happy-go-lucky, and you're supposed to be an effeminate woman, effectively. However, you're also supposed to be this badass duelist who, if someone calls your shit out, guess what? You gotta stab a bitch. So that's what I'm looking at right now, and this is why I'm watching this video, because I want to get across this feeling of combat, the fencing, because that's what this game is. It's a fencing game at its core, so it's kind of that, if I can see it, I can do it. Now, the the biggest issue is this nightmare right here, because you have to ask yourself. Yeah, Song of Swords does. The two things about Song of Swords that I've been noticing through Gino, actually, is Song of Swords really likes to, I think the best way to word it is have the idea that everyone's competent and you're in a fight, not a duel. It's kind of weird to say, but in a fight, you're expected to go in there and club the man that you don't like in the head with a hammer. You go boing and their head comes off. That's the kind of the strategy, but this is a duel. This is a formal. I want to get across more of the idea of a formal fencing match. These are two people going into this arena to not necessarily kill one another. That's not really the full intention. The intention is to pretty much beat them, whether that means they accidentally fall on your sword or not. And I want to get across the back and forth, and I actually kind of want to just, at the end of the day, I also want to design Song of Swords for me, avoiding all like the 5 million maneuvers or anything like that. Because again, there's not going to be 150 weapons. There's going to be like 6. But each of those weapons I want to be detailed and have the right thing with it. Mostly, and I also want to just dab on Thirsty Sword Lesbians, because fuck that game. I'm curious. Songs. You deal with fight. Tell me, why do you do things? Because originally I was actually thinking about doing something more with well, it's a PBTA hack, that's all it is. But one of my other ideas for this game was actually, I was thinking about trying to adapt For Honor's combat system to the table, because of For Honor's three ping combat radial thing. God, why am I so tired all of a sudden? But I don't get that often. I can't. It's well, I want to try to get like the idea of like play combat, because if you've ever seen theatrical combat, it's very fascinating because of how they have to do things, and that's what actually For Honor combat is based off of, which is theatrical combat with the 3-hit radial area, because that's what you have to do in theater, obviously, because you can't just swing wildly because, well, you don't want to stab anyone with the very cool looking sword, so you have to be like, all right. Exactly. Then you kind of get the method behind it, and that's what I was thinking about doing. Is the idea because pretty much the lore behind this, the lore, because I need lore for it because I fucking can, is in definitely not Austria, in not Europe. War sucks, and all the men keep getting drafted to go to the front. So this old emperor is like, oh hey, I want to try to pretend to make sure everything is like it used to be, and everything's fine. So I'm going to allow duels again between women, because again everything's fine, right? Saying because every man's valuable, we'll just allow duels between women. The women won't actually duel, right? That's insane. They do though. That's kind of the thing. But I want to get across that this is very formal. This isn't, two people running at each other trying to bop each other over the head with swords. This is a formal affair. This is, throwing your glove down and being this like, you ready to fight, bitch? And have, kind of that almost theatrical combat to it. Of how do you train someone whose their entire life has been dedicated to being a pleasant woman of the court into being someone who can kill another person? How do you train them in sword fighting, and what's the difference between that, between feminine sword fighting and masculine sword fighting? And that was kind of the ideal roaring in my head. And then I'm like, well, fencing is kind of an obvious one. Instead of shields and swords bashing each other, it's a lot more formalized. It's more like a fucking HEMA than an actual duel. Because anyone who ever says like, oh, look at all these HEMA manuals, and that's how combat was done. No, that's not how combat was done at all. When you're out on the field and there's a bunch of angry dudes over there and your angry dudes are with you, you just start swinging and hope. You're like, yeah, you can get some training in there, but at the end of the day, all that matters is survival. So you're going to do shit that isn't in the book exactly. You're going to tackle someone to the ground and stab your knife into their eye socket because you don't want to die. With this idea, this is super formal, super formalized, and there's rules, and that's one of the things I'm going to have to write into this book effectively, is the dueling rules. Because you can't just run in there and stab someone in the head. No, that's illegal. This is a duel, damn it. This isn't we aren't barbarians. But that's kind of my own rambling. Let's see. I'm actually debating on dropping the limb-based health. I want it. I want that limb-based health so bad. Because I love limb-based health. I think it's really cool. It provokes a very different reaction from players. Of saying, oh, well, I'm doing fine now. Having 99 HP and then getting reduced to 1 HP, their thinking is very different than, all right, I just took 5 damage to my arm and now my arm's at half health, and oh, well, my chest has full health now, but one thing later and that could be nothing. Well, HP does have a different, people think of it differently. It's not, all right, I took a big wound, what am I going to do? It's, I took a wound and I reduced my 50 health bar, my health bar from 50 to 46 or something. That's why I like spin down so much, actually. Which I've learned is actually very unpopular. But I like it. It's one of the other things with Hellish Courts. I wonder if I can find a clip of it. So, see the way they're holding their weapons? This is the short style. I wonder if... okay, they just chopped each other's fucking hands off. I wonder if they're going to keep chopping each other. This is the fucking gore demonstration. But one of the things is that you can go from this kind of shorter stance to a longer stance to pull off longer distance stuff. And that's one thing I actually want to deal with, because all Song of Swords deals with in terms of, you know, reach is based off their initiative. I want to get the idea across that if I'm using a great sword and you are using a dagger, I'm going to kill you if you do not close the distance, because there's more. I have 100% more sword than you. That you're also looking at the asshole who played through like the entirety of Bushido Blade multiple times, because I fucking love Bushido Blade. We're also going to be working about here-ish. We're effectively working at 20 PCP. That's kind of the idea. That you're not super strong. You're more impressive than others, but not as impressive. None of this fantasy stuff. Nothing like that. You can find an emulator of it somewhere. Yeah, I love Bushido Blade. I went through a phase where I downloaded a bunch of PS1 games. That's where I played the entirety of Final Fantasy Tactics. I played... which I still is my favorite Final Fantasy game, and no one can take that away from me. I played, Brigadine. I love Brigadine. That's my favorite role-playing strategy RPG of all time. And no game has ever been quite able to scratch that itch. One day, they will. But... I also played Bushido Blade, which I found a lot of fun. I was not very good at it, but it didn't stop me from having fun with it. But one thing I liked about Bushido Blade more than anything is that every fight felt impactful. It was, okay, I'm blocking, I'm defending myself, I'm jumping back. You know, it's like, I have to, it's not, all right, I'm going to hit you once or twice, I'm going to hit you to reduce your life bar by 40 points. It's, I'm going to hit you right in the head to kill you. And that was... yeah, no, I get what you mean. You know, I hit people in the back. It's... But it was just that satisfying feeling of getting in there, clashing blades. It felt like you were in a sword fight, and it felt great. And that's why I've been like referencing this Hellish Court so much. You can actually download a demo on Steam, fun fact, because it's they pretty much tout it as modern day Bushido Blade, except with Polish sword fighting techniques, which is awesome, by the way, because Polish sword fighting is cool, which is why I named it this. because it's a lot of sabers, it's a lot of dancing back and forth. And I enjoyed that about it. Even Bushido Blade. Originally, this game was supposed to be based off Kendo, but I kind of changed it up, because I just felt like it. But I could still put in aspects of Kendo and things like that in. I wonder. Kenya TRPG. Yeah, it's absolutely terrible when. Yeah, I actually like to reference L5R of all fucking things, and Legend of the Five Rings hates everything I've learned. I think this works. Actually, if I increase this back up to 10, not 105, not 105, very different 105. Yeah, I want you to roll a 100d6 real fast to do this fuck combat. We do 10, and then we add this here. It does give people with lower attributes more incentive to do other things. Rather than, oh, I have high bravado, I just want to fight. Well, you can. You can tell them how much you like Bastard Bonds. I'm not going to say you're going to get, positive reception for it. That's kind of the curse of Bastard Bonds. You want to tell people about it because it's a fun game. Outside everything, it's a fun game. It's just like, oh yeah, it's this really cool RPG. Cool. What's it like? There's yeah. Here's your cock size. um, I wish you could actually talk to people more about it, but it's actually again very hard. You can pit. It's a great game. That's why I'm so aggressively positive about it, because it's if you really look past all of people, it's hard for people to look past that aspect of it, but if you do, it's a really damn good game. Actually, do something. Phase bait combats stare down, so it's the idea of you. So if we use this. Here's the stare down. Strike, strike, combo, strike, recovery, strike, strike. Actually, we can probably move the stare down. Yeah, we do stare down, strikes, recovery, and then you move. God, the only thing I could do is put misc there. Because the idea being, okay, if we do stare down, clash, 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 moving around. Because if we take the idea of this, let's see if we get a fight. Okay, so like this fight, this area right here, this is your distance, this is their sword, this is their length. Clash, 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 moving, trying to block, blocking, blocking, defending, trying to kill one another, stabbing, kicking, stare down. So yeah, the stare down is a part of that. So stare down is when we gain our adrenaline. And we're allowed to redistribute how we want to do things. So stare down is where you change this up. Actually, if we do something like passive blocking, number of successes to actually strike, if heavy, then ignore. If heavy, then ignore for future attacks. With the idea being, with this, I go in for a heavy. Okay, I see you're going to block. You're dumping everything into blocking. You're going to do nothing else. You're just blocking me. I'm going to go in for the heavy attack. I'm going to break your block, and then I'm going to do a light, 2 little lights to cripple you. Then what's it about? Then what's... This is one of those issues I have to worry about, because like, what's preventing people from just turtling up? What's preventing people from just sitting down and just saying, okay, I don't want to do it? And I think that's where heavy attacks come in. You do light ones are easier to do if we scram together the combos. Because if you put together the combos, with the idea being attack A, attack B, attack C. But let's say I want to dump everything into defense. I'm going to be blocking all those defenses unless I can like parry one of them or do something like that. But if we're both attacking, it's going to be attack A into your attack A, attack B into your attack B, and then your attack C into my attack C. Which could mean if I dump more points into this than you, my attack is going to go through, your attack gets canceled because we just beat your fucking sword out of the way. But you're also dedicating way too much resources to it, so your later attacks aren't going to be actually doing anything. Or you're just going to cut each other's fucking heads off. See, that's... You don't realize how much goes into a sword fight until you actually think about it. And this is one of those complicated little things with this. And this is the same thing I had to do with fucking Fists of Chaos, which is going to get on Redux in probably 2-3 months. Which I have to think about is, how do I, with my sword, hit someone to kill them? And it's like, all right, you know, what goes where, who does what. Because I enjoy it, Burb. Because I enjoy the pain. then I find it interesting. It's to me this is it's solving a puzzle. How do you get from X to Y? And I have the X. I need to find the little arrow to get to the Y. And I can see it, what I want. Or actually, I can. Here's the video of what I want, which is a lot easier said than done. I will say probably like if you want like the true Notepad must die experience, it's going to be let's see. It's going to be like right about here. This is going to be the Notepad must die moment. These episodes, for a variety of reasons. Deep Sea is just going to require me to do a lot of little stuff. I'm going to have to do a random dungeon creator for Fear and Hunger. HSDM is just a nightmare to even think about. I've never actually made a board game before, so Yige Jungo is going to be its own fun and exciting adventure of me wanting to die. And Fist of Chaos is Fist of Chaos, which is effectively what I'm running into right now, which is just a mess of thinky me no. Ultimately, I think this game is going to be about investment more than anything. Where do I want to invest myself? Do I want to invest myself in going cautious, where I can kind of dedicate myself half-half? Or do I want to dedicate myself to go aggressive, which is the idea of, hey, I'm going to dump everything into offense. Where if, things do go wrong, I'm, kind of shit out of luck, or they do counter me, I'm kind of SOL, but, if I catch them off guard, they're not going to do too hot. Or do I go full defense? In which case, they're not, they ain't going to be doing crap to me. So it's kind of a game of how much do I want to dump into this versus how much do I want to deal with. Long short style, that's easy enough to kind of put into. So if I do, all right, wound-based health. Let's just rattle this off the top of my head. So if we do wound-based health, let's say every single area, left leg, right leg, left arm, left right arm, head, torso. Let's say each of them have 5 wounds. No, let's be conservative. Let's say torso's got 10 wounds, head's got 3, limbs all got 5. Let's just say that. If I take a big hit, I'm going to have to distribute my wounds. Let's say I take 5 wounds. I can either lose my entire arm or try to distribute it between adjacent parts. So I can say, okay, I'm going to take 3 wounds to my arm, which is effectively crippling it. I'm going to take 2 to my chest. I'm not going to die from that. I'm going to be in extreme pain, but I ain't going to die. So I'm effectively out of the fight. I'm done. I take 6 wounds. How do I distribute it? 3 in the arm, 3 in the chest. I'm effectively down for the count again. Unless you do a called strike. Spend adrenaline, do a called strike, go for the head. Unless you can parry or counter that, you can just stab someone in the noggin. Yeah, that's an idea. We do aggressive, cautious, defensive stances. Do the long, short style holdings. If I want, what I can do, add in a 4th stance. Call it like an investment stance or something, or the idea behind aggressive, you dump in all your adrenaline, all your points into going on the offense. distributing your various attacks to kind of deal with the enemy. Cautious is all about kind of you're splitting your pool half and half go to defense, half don't. Defensive is you're dumping everything into defense, and we can add a fourth one called trick or something, which is all about fucking with your opponent more than anything. But no, that doesn't work. Alright, you know what? I'm going to call it here. We've got about an hour, 40 minutes. We got some stuff done. I'm going to probably see if I can't get the basic sheet and everything set up for, it would be Friday will be the next episode. Actually, Friday's the January 1st. Yeah, Friday, January 1st will be the first of the new year. We'll start on the new project. Perfect. We'll get that project done. Yeah, so this will be, I think, alright, I'm seeing how to do it. It's mostly a game of trying to get the numbers to work. And I think once I start writing things down, I think it's gonna work a lot better. I think it's gonna click. But I think that's what I need right now. I need to put it on paper, and I need it to click. Once that happens, I think I'm gonna be good. Alright. Cool. Thank you all for watching. Godspeed, good luck. I'll catch you all on the flip side. Yeah. Bye.